Hello, everyone. I'm so glad you stuck around to hear the last presentation of the day, because I think I'm one of the few, if, I don't know, maybe only nutrition scientists here. I've had a long-standing interest in the future of food for, gosh, I don't know, 25 years or so, and I'm a pretty big sci-fi geek as well, so you're going to hear a couple of sci-fi references. In fact, I'm talking about food evolution, the final frontier. Specifically, how nutrition science, technology, and innovation really are the foundation of health and sustainability, people to planet. Before I start, I just want to mention that, like all of us here, we have a very small amount of time to talk to you about pretty huge subjects. My recent book, I cover a huge amount about the past, present, and future of food. What Everyone Needs to Know is a great series through Oxford University Press, and I'm just going to throw out a few of the things that I think about and then focus in on my subject today. How will we sustainably feed people? Not only in 2050, which a lot of us here are actively working about when we're going to be about 10 billion people, but beyond. And I'm talking about beyond, as in 24th century, centuries from now. What are we going to be eating? How will people procure and consume food? How are high tech and big data changing farming? Will food production move to cities? Will animals be raised as food? Is personalized nutrition hope or hype? What will be on our dinner plate? How will machines change how we cook and eat? Ultimately, what does food evolution look like? So that's where I'm going to spend my time. You know, the fact is, there's a lot of contention. People feel very passionately about food. I know I do. I came at nutrition from being a foodie. I cooked, I baked, I gardened. What and how we eat is a very intimate relationship, and we often argue about what the best ways are to create a healthy and sustainable food supply. Well, one of the things that gets a short end of the stick, I have found, is science. In fact, that's why I left my career doing mostly research to change to science communication. If you haven't seen this before, it's a well-known cover from National Geographic. It's from a few years back. Climate change, evolution, the moon landing, vaccinations, genetically modified food. The amount of junk science and opinions out there that are confusing people and or changing the conversations or dominating the conversations is having a dramatic, a very problematic impact on the public health. Guess what? 80% of chronic diseases are preventable. 80%, according to the World Health Organization. Diet is the single largest contributing factor. Diet is the single largest contributing factor, according to World Health Organization. That's not from one study. That's not from a handful of studies. That's from hundreds and thousands of studies over the course of decades. So the question is then, though, what is the best way, if we know that 80% of chronic diseases are preventable, and the best way to do that is through what? A plant-based diet. That's not opinion. That's consensus of scientists around the world. But the question is, how are we going to achieve that? If we know that a plant-based diet, that people need to reduce their meat intake, not just for their own health, but for sustainability, if we know this to be true, how are we going to do that? Do we say, okay, well, people need to eat more legumes. They need to be getting their protein from plants, not animals. Well, yes, they do. Is telling people going to lead them to change their diet? No. Today, we know that taste, cost, convenience are the leading drivers of how and what we eat. You've heard from all my colleagues, and I couldn't agree more, that food should be enjoyed. Food is a celebration of tradition and culture, and I, as much as anyone, want people to enjoy their food. Simply telling them what to eat doesn't work. What about how we should grow this to be more sustainable? Maybe we should grow it inside, vertically, so we don't further dwindle to precious natural resources. What about genetically engineering those peas? Maybe they can deliver, say, vitamin A. What about if it delivers a vaccine? Well, I think let's look to Yoda. A little more knowledge might light our way. So what do I mean by that? Well, if we look across the course of human evolution, we start from the Paleolithic era and we get to the present, we see how, over time, our relationship with land has always been changed with tools, technology, and science. Tools, technology, and science. Really, it's the opposite direction, though. Whether science informs technology and impacts how and what we eat. Obviously, this is an entire portion of my book, but in brief, in the Paleolithic era, we later discovered stones that greatly expanded our diet, and we started consuming more animals. We were actually original gatherers-scavengers, in case no one told you. We were not hunter-gatherers. So then we moved forward past the Paleolithic era. We discovered fire, we developed tools, our dietary diversity increased. Then we move on through the Neolithic era, the new Stone Age. That's when the birth of agriculture, right? We started domesticating grains, later animals. So fast forward. I'm just touching on 5 here. The Industrial Revolution, moving away from the land. Food, canning, preserving food, all of these changed indelibly during the Industrial Revolution. The next one's much more recent, the genetic revolution. It's through the mapping of the human genome that we can even think about personalization. So then let's finally end on the digital revolution. The digital revolution has allowed us to make incredible strides with regards to our quantified self, with regards to how we can measure what we eat, how we can make changes to how we grow food, and eventually to how we prepare and consume food as well. Through all of this time, especially more recent years, nutrition science and other sciences have been unraveling the mysteries of why what we eat matters. Okay, so that's why we know about all the essential nutrients. That's why we have the knowledge that we can fortify food and so forth. So what I want to do in the remaining time, now that I've sort of set the stage, is just give 2 examples. 2 examples. One is my obsession. I am absolutely obsessed with the alternative protein movement, which, by the way, is within the past 10 years. And if you haven't had these products, you are missing out. And the biggest consumer of these products is omnivores. So just, should I clarify, when I was talking about plant-based, I'm talking about plant-based. I didn't say vegetarian, I didn't say vegan. We simply are talking about swapping out meat and including more vegetables because you're gonna get better health for your body and for our environment. The top 2 games in town, Beyond Meat and Impossible Burger. The bottom one is Mark Post's cell-based burger. All of them are committed to sustainability because we know that livestock is a major emitter of methane. Methane is a powerful greenhouse gas, right? Not to mention the amount of inefficiencies in raising livestock. And by the way, of course, I can't get into the fact that many people today are dependent upon livestock for health and nutrition. That's a challenge for the developing world. But right now, I can tell you for certain, and I know I'm not alone, the future is meatless. And I'll say more about that. And I'm talking about the 24th century future right now. I'm not talking about 2050. Simply, too many people need it. The bottom line, science, tech plus innovation equals disruption. This has disrupted the meat industry like never before, so much so that players like Tyson, meat companies, are getting involved in the game. You can have your burger and eat it too. The last example I want to give you is nutrification. Nutrification is the most effective way of delivering health benefits to populations. This is not opinion, this is a fact. Nutrification. Most people aren't familiar with the word. Just think about it as it sounds, adding nutrients to food. Salt was the first one, 1914, more than a century ago. That's actually an image from the salt company. And of course, we know that this has been a major factor, if not the only factor, by which we were able to achieve a decrease in intellectual disability due to iodine deficiency disorder. That's through iodization. That's a good example of nutrification. Nutrification can sometimes be used for less than stellar reasons. Your vitamin donuts aren't gonna help people, right? Just like a huge amount of fortified foods that have a health halo, that have a perceived health value, really are no more nutritious than their non-nutrified counterparts. So this is not what I'm talking about. But when it's used correctly, as it was for grain products, when it treated a number of different vitamin B deficiencies 100 years ago, and like it did 20 years ago with folate being fortified to decrease neural tube defects, these are incredible examples of nutrification that have led to massive improvements in public health because they don't require behavior change. That is harnessing the power of nutrition knowledge and working with food technology to create a healthier population. And to the extent that such things are sustainable, like the alt meat products, it also leads to a more sustainable planet. And a couple more examples just on nutrification, fortification we were just talking about, traditional. Now I'm talking about biofortification. Many people might recognize this as golden rice. Golden rice is a genetic engineering project formed by the International Humanitarian Rice Board. People immediately think it, they think Monsanto, and a number of people then start Monsanto evil. No, no, no. We're talking about the International Rice Board. This is founded by scientists who want to prevent vitamin A deficiency, which is one of the leading causes of death and blindness of children in the developing world. It's completely preventable. This could be a method by which vitamin A is delivered, just like other traditional methods. It's been caught up in the genetic modification, GMO wars for 20 years, which is to the detriment of the health of many children. So you don't want to eat at all, don't want to change your behavior at all. We have perfectly nutrified to the extent that we have such knowledge. Well, that allows us to have our meal without actually eating it or preparing it or cooking it. This is actually just the most natural evolution of nutrification, right? So we were first just adding a single nutrient because we could get that and prevent deficiencies. Now we're basically creating whole meals that meet our nutrient needs. The problem, by the way, that I can't digress, and I could give a whole lecture on it, is that such knowledge is based upon reductionism. And you've heard a little bit of a theme now, that this only includes the nutrients we know about, Nutrition evolves, right? So that apple we're eating, we know about some of the good things in it, but we don't know about the dark matter in it. We don't know about the things leading to our health effect that we don't know about. We won't know about them for a long time. But guess what? Years and years, centuries now, we will have that knowledge such that, yes, we will be able to order food from a food replicator. Any Trekkies out there? Please, if you are, at least give me a little shout out thank you, so I don't feel like a total nerd. Yes, I'm a science geek in all ways, but there's such perfect analogies, I think. This already exists. No, we can't yet go to a food replicator and order tea, Earl Grey, hot. We still need to have the tea leaves and brew the water, and if you didn't get that reference, you can just Google it. But that was Jean-Luc Picard constantly just going, tea, Earl Grey hot, and there it would appear. But that product has been perfectly nutrified to meet human needs. There's no more chronic disease, no more nutrient deficiencies, no more even headaches, because food has been perfectly nutrified. This is centuries hence, so we know the answers, right? Well, no doubt many here don't feel the same as I do. Still in the 24th century, there are arguments about what role technology should play in producing and consuming food. Here, Captain Jean-Luc Picard argues with his brother, who, as you can see, grows grapes. That wine is from 2267. He is a farmer, and they say, no, the wine from the replicator can't surely be as good as that from my farm. Wherever you find yourself, though, when it comes to such decisions and to such values, we know that everyone here, all voices, all solutions, all tools, all technologies that we have in our box are needed to solve today's incredible challenges with regards to health and sustainability, and that we may all live long and prosper. Everyone around the world, not just here, not just in places we can afford it, but to places where they can. Long live the revolution.